IMSA visited the tight streets of Long Beach for the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. It was a race that saw many storylines, from the debut of Robert Wickens in the GTD class. It also saw plenty of beating and banging in the hairpin. But perhaps the biggest storyline of the weekend were the strategy calls and how we saw everything unfold in the pits. This is your Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach post-race report. Let's kick things off with the GTD class because they put on a great show for us this weekend. Now, the story of the weekend, of course, was Robert Wickens and his debut in GT3 spec equipment. The Canadian driver making his GTD debut alongside experienced factory Corvette driver Tommy Milner were equipped with the new Bosch hand control system. And with that new system, they showed great pace. Robert Wickens actually paced the GTD class in second practice. Wickens would follow that up and put up another strong effort in qualifying with a 5th place starting position. However, since they caused a red flag in session 2, their fastest lap was disqualified and they would ultimately start 8th. Throughout the race, Wickens and Milner made good progress working through the field and would make their way up to as high as 5th after taking 4 tires on their pit stop, where many of the other teams were taking 2 tires or in some cases no tires. It was shaping up to be a very strong race for the Corvette until they would make contact in the tight hairpin corner with the number 96 Turner Motorsports BMW, which caused some bodywork to come loose and eventually would force them to pit after getting the black and orange flag. Now, while the result wasn't great for DXDT, this was a very good overall positive weekend for them. At the end of the day, they showed podium level speed in this race, and I think that's something we can only expect them to improve on as the season goes on. Also, something of note here with regards to Wickens, Sportscar 365 noted that Wickens is expected to announce an additional racing program on Tuesday in addition to these Sprint Cup races with DXDT. Now, the other big storyline in GTD was Vasser Sullivan. Lexus and Vasser Sullivan have been borderline dominant at this place in recent years, and they once again showed that strong pace here in 2025. After sitting on pole with the full season number 12 entry, they would lead the first 24 laps of the race before coming in for their only pit stop of the race. And here is where the race was decided in GTD. Before the pit stop, AO Racing was in a good battle with the 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin for second place. And as the number 12 Vasser Sullivan Lexus would come in and make their pit stop, AO Racing, in their 177 entry, would opt to come down pit road 1 lap later. There, AO Racing pulled off an absolutely flawless stop. They would spend 3 seconds less on pit road than the number 12, and they would actually jump them in the running order as well as jumping the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. After gaining the lead, they would survive a debris full course yellow that would come out shortly after, and hold off the rest of their GTD competitors en route to a class win. Johnny Edgar and Lawrence Vantor would pick up AO Racing's first win in the GTD class and would also give them wins in consecutive races, after winning, of course, in GTD Pro at Sebring. The full season number 12 Vasser Sullivan Lexus and the one-off number 89 Vasser Sullivan Lexus would round out the podium. Now, if you're like me, you've probably found yourself at a race with your camera, wondering how the pros make their shots look so good. Well, yours don't. If this is you, then check out Paddock Focus Photography Workshops. You're already familiar with the incredible work that Paddock Focus co-host Jamie Price puts out. I mean, you see his work all the time right here on this channel. And now you can learn from him and fellow photographer Drew Gibson from the comfort of your home. They have workshops on everything from how to become a motorsport photographer to a special guide on the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is coming up quicker than you might think. And for Hoff and ES's viewers, Paddock Focus is offering a 10% discount on any of their workshops when you use promo code S's. That's promo code S's at paddockfocus.teachable.com or click the first link in the description. Thanks again to Paddock Focus for supporting the show. Now, the only other IMSA class present at Long Beach was, of course, the GTP class, and they certainly left us plenty to talk about. I want to start off with the Aston Martin Valkyrie. Honestly, I think they had a better weekend than any of us really expected. They didn't really show great pace in practice and qualifying, but when it turned to race day, they showed some solid long run pace. Now, ultimately, they would go on to finish 8th out of the 11 cars in the class. But notably, they finished ahead of both of the Meyer-Shank Racing Acuras, who really had a day to forget. The Valkyrie also spent a good chunk of the day running ahead of another manufacturer that we expected to see better pace out of this weekend, those being the Cadillacs. Man, it's been a slow start to the 2025 season for Cadillac. And it did not get any better for them after this weekend in Long Beach. After finishing 1-2 in this race last year, I think many, including myself, saw this as an opportunity for them to right the ship. And that didn't happen. They never really showed great pace at all this weekend, and while the number 31 was able to salvage a 4th place finish, the 10 and the 40 were nowhere near the pace of their competitors and ended up finishing 6th and 7th. Now, if Cadillac had what you would call a disappointing race, I think Acura's had to be a disaster. The 60 and the 93 both showed some solid pace through the weekend, and they would run 4th and 6th for much of the opening stint. That, however, would be where things peaked for the Acura ARX-06s. You see, the 6 Porsche would end up making contact with the number 93 Acura, causing a little bit of damage. Now, this is damage that ultimately could have been fixed under the first full course yellow of the race, but instead the team opted not to fix it and instead had to come down pit road after getting a black and orange flag from race control and make the repair. These repairs were made, of course, under green flag racing now, and the car would lose a lap to the leaders. Meanwhile, under that full four-course yellow, where many of the GTP class competitors boxed at the first possible opportunity, the 60 waited. Yeah, the 60 stayed out after the first opportunity to come down pit lane and ended up coming into the pits a couple of laps later. Now, I believe that this was just a different fuel strategy that they were playing, as at the time it was very close as to whether these GTP cars were going to be able to make it to the end of the race. So I think that MSR and Acura decided to hold back one of their cars for a couple laps, get a little bit of extra fuel in it, and if this thing ran green to the end, then maybe be one of the only cars that were able to make it on fuel. I mean, that didn't work out ultimately. There was a full course yellow shortly after, and as a result of this different fuel strategy, the 60 was mired in the back of the class in traffic virtually for the rest of the race. Ultimately, the 60 would go on to finish 9th, with the 93 finishing 11th. Alright, a real question that I'm asking myself right now is, did anybody truly have a good race here in Long Beach in GTP? Because it was also a disaster for BMW. BMW had the best outright pace of any of the GTP cars this weekend. They paced practice, and after qualifying first and second, they would run that way up until the first full course yellow of the race. But then during this full course yellow, the team opted for that split strategy play that Meyer-Shank Racing was also attempting. The leading number 24 would come into the pits as well as the remainder of the GTP class. However, on that pit stop, they struggled a little bit and lose 3 spots on pit road. The 25 would come into the pits a couple of laps later, along with the 60, on that alternate strategy and drop to the back of the class. Now, after this pit cycle where BMW came into it running first and second, they basically gave all of their track position up at this point to the Porsches. And with track position being so critical here at Long Beach, you just knew that that was a big mistake. Now, the 24 would be able to rebound, but never would be able to get past the Porsches. Again, that track position was just too much to overcome. Number 25, meanwhile, was able to make up a number of positions through the field, and the 24 and the 25 would ultimately go on to finish 3rd and 5th in the race. However, for BMW, I think many people are going to be left thinking of what could have been in this one. Now, where BMW slipped, Porsche took advantage of it. And while they didn't have the same sheer pace as BMW on the short runs, they had the long run pace to keep anybody behind them. And it wasn't just the Penske Porsches either that were strong. The number 85 JDC Miller Porsche had a strong run going as well. They were running 5th when they made contact with the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, which saw them spin into a wall and bring out the race's second full course yellow. Back to Penske though, after they got by the BMWs on that pit cycle, they never looked back. The number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsports 963 of Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasr start the season 3 for 3 as they took the win in Long Beach. The number 6 Porsche crossed the line in second, with the number 24 BMW rounding out the podium. Now before we get to the point standings, I want to quickly touch on some of the surprises and disappointments that we saw this race. The biggest GTP surprise for me, honestly, were the Porsches. Sure, they had won the opening 2 rounds of the season, so I don't think you could have called them an underdog per se coming into this race, but I think I expected them to be maybe a bit of a step behind where some of the other manufacturers are. Sure, they had won the opening 2 rounds of the season, so I don't think anybody was going to call them underdogs, but this race in Long Beach is vastly different than a 12 or a 24-hour race that they had pulled off before. Add in that I think Cadillac was expected to do well here, BMW was expected to be strong as well, and I just certainly didn't expect Porsche to roll in here and get another 1-2 finish. So for that, I'm calling Porsche a bit of a surprise from this weekend. Disappointment though in GTP were the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillacs. As I said a moment ago, I think everybody had the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillacs circled for a strong performance here in Long Beach. As it turned out though, they showed really zero pace throughout the entire weekend. Now manufacturer changes can take some time to get used to things and see some of that pace evolve, but I don't think anybody would disagree that those Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillacs were a bit of a disappointment this weekend. In GTD, I think the biggest surprise was DXDT coming out with as strong of a run as they had. Sure, they didn't get the win in GTD, they didn't even get a representative finish of where they ran all weekend, but Robert Wickens came out and paced the GTD field in practice too. They followed that up and had really strong race pace as well, being able to pass cars throughout the race at a track in Long Beach that is difficult to make passes at. This was a great start to the season for Robert as well as that team so that team has had a couple of rough runs to start the season as well. But I think it was a bit of a surprise to see the great pace that DXDT showed this weekend, a pleasant surprise, and it's going to be exciting to see how they can roll this momentum forward into Laguna Seca. The disappointment of GTD today had to be the 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. After a strong qualifying run, they lost a lot of track position on that pit stop. Later on, they'd also get caught up in an incident with the number 85 GTP entry, although I do not believe that this was the 27's fault at all. But I just didn't think that this was the race that we come to expect from the Heart of Racing. They're a very solid team, a very experienced team, and to go from such a strong starting position to struggling a little bit throughout the race and ultimately finishing 9th was a bit of a disappointment. This is a championship caliber team in GTD, and we're going to be looking for them to bounce back strong as well at Laguna Seca. Let's take a look at the point standings now, presented by P1 Web Development. If you're looking for a custom website, then look no further than P1 Web Development. You can head to p1webdevelopment.com or click the first link in the description. In GTP, well, the car that's won the 3 opening races of the season has a commanding lead here. The number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsports 963 leads with 1,140 points. That's 123 points ahead of the sister number 6 Porsche. The number 24 BMW is in third, 265 points back, with the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac and the number 60 Acura Meyershank Racing entry rounding out the top 5. In GTD, it was a strong but quiet day for Windward Racing, as they hold on to a 91-point lead over the number 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus. Number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin sits third, 95 points back, while 99 points back of the 57 is the 120 Wright Motorsports Porsche. Rounding out the top 5 is number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW. Round 3 of 2025 is in the books, and we're just a few weeks away from Laguna Seca. And when we head to Laguna Seca, one of the GTP teams that's going to be looking to bounce back with a strong effort is Meyershank Racing. I put together a video highlighting many of Meyershank Racing's accomplishments and some of the hardships that they've faced in IMSA to this point. You can check that out right here. Huge shout out to all the channel supporters. If you too want to support the show, you can head to patreon.com/offintheesses or click that join button below. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.